Input cost is going up with the storage and demand of fertilizer for right now. What's new with the farm bill for this week? Could we do our happy dance yet? Otherwise, he is joining me now as KJ, Kevin Johnson from Illinois Soybean Association. Hey, KJ, how are things with the planting season in central Illinois?
Hey, appreciate you having me back on, Caesar. Um, as most of your viewers know, I farm with my family down in Champaign, Vermilion County. It has been a kind of delayed start. We're not getting huge rains, but just enough rain to keep us out of the field. We are probably half done with beans, maybe 30% of corn, and we're recording this for the right before Mother's Day, and there looks like there's some more rain in the forecast, so it might be in a few more days before we get in. But um, we need some warm weather also. It's kind of been cool here in East Central Illinois, so I think that has kind of halted some of the planters out there. So we're making progress, but I would always like to be a little more done than we are right now.
How much of rain, KJ?
Anywhere we've had farms that's closer to St. Joe, just east of Champaign-Urbana, that's had 3 to 4 inches, and then when we go north, where we farm up by Tool, Gifford, Flatville area on 136, we haven't caught as much, but just enough to keep us out. We have got to sneak a couple different fields in of planning, but we really only had 3 really good long day stretches where it's been really fit and we're going to go hard. But again, some of this cooler weather we've had pretty much the last 2 to 3 weeks has kind of shied away some guys playing just because, you know, kind of want that corn to come up in that 7 day window. And I don't think very much corn is going to come up when it's 50 degrees and high 30s, low 40s at nighttime.
Good to hear that, but the weather has been wet.
Absolutely. Hopefully we get some warmer weather, but also some drier forecasts. I don't want to shoot all the way in away, but just maybe a little longer stretch of drier weather that we can get this crop in the ground.
KJ, let's start with our discussion on the fertilizer markets for right now with the war and global economic. What is your thoughts with the fertilizer markets?
You know, it has tracked higher with everything going on. The one good thing, I saw a report from one of the universities that showed that 72% of the fertilizer was already bought here in the Midwest. Now, the southern crops were a lot further behind. I think the fertilizer prices are definitely hurting those guys worse than us. Um, but fertilizer, if there's any kind of hiccup in the market, it's going to affect the price. I always tell people we ship half our soybeans down the Illinois and Mississippi River for export, but pretty much all fertilizer, 90% of the world's fertilizer markets go on to someplace else. So any eruptions in the Strait of Hormuz or anything like that is going to have effect. The good thing is, I think most of the stuff is bought, but where I am looking, I was kind of telling some board members in a meeting the other day, is we really need to see where this fertilizer market goes into the summer. I think usually season here in Illinois, or at least where retailers are buying it, is that time around the Farm Progress Show. Going into the fall, a lot of stuff starts getting locked in for the next season. I don't think people realize how much fertilizer in that time frame. We need some of these fertilizer prices. But there's going to be some sticker shock out there, and you really do, as I tell everybody every year, have a good conversation on what your plan is. We used to a couple days ahead of time. Hey, you know, Brand or FS or Helen or Nutrient. Hey, I need this much fertilizer. We're going to start planting today. Now you got to have a long-term forecast of where that looks out, just because of the supply needs and just where that stockpile is at. So it's not great right now, but I'm hoping there's a little better eyesight here later this summer when a lot of that stuff gets restocked back up for the coming year.
Are you concerned about inputs costs are up for next year's planting season?
I think it's a wait and see attitude. I didn't have on my bingo card war with Iran or the Strait of Hormuz shutting down. So I think you have to look a long term. And what I can tell you is 6 months. Somebody says, "What's fertilizer prices going to do in 6 months?" I I think it's hard to say. I'm hoping this trend down, but if there's any kind of hiccup, we do something else or something goes on with the war, that's going to be trouble. And I don't think the Illinois farmers realize the conversation about the Strait of Hormuz, how much stuff moves through that. Not just fertilizer, a lot of different things that affects agriculture moves through that strait.
Of course, KJ, we don't have a crystal ball.
No, I wish I had a crystal ball, especially on the weather or the fertilizer prices that are going out there. But we will see. And again, I tell farmers some of the best buys are going into that right before the spring or right before we go in that fall fertilizer season. But I've also talked to some members of Congress about this. That's great when we can buy some of those at a better price, but that also means you got to better have a better conversation with your local banker or your loan officer, because you're going to be extending out some of those loans. Not everybody can just write that check in September for next year's crop needs, just because of tax persons or just your loan limits out there. So there's definitely domino effects that happen with that, but again, I think we need to look further in to see how long this war goes on with Iran or what other world things are playing into that market.
I know that you are working in the fertilizer space and the chemical inputs. Do you have any concerns about these issues for right now, because the fertilizer and fuel are gonna up? What is your position on substantial farming for this era?
Well, I think you're gonna have a definitely sharper pencil. The good thing is we're seeing some ticks up on the grain markets to help that, but it's gonna be pretty hard when you got farm diesel at $5 and some of the fertilizer prices. I think again you're gonna, if you see a time where you can lock some stuff in, you need to lock it in. At least say on the crop protection side, the chemical side, I think we're in a good spot with where products are at. I don't see any major hiccups in that, so I think that is good. Um, but yeah, there's definitely have to be some tighter pencils out there or sharper pencils out there on a lot of these things going into the 26 crop. But I do think some guys are playing further ahead on that and lock some of that in. I was lucky enough, not that I knew anything better, but got some ammonia on before some of the war happened, and I feel a lot better about my position. I might have thought that was a great buy that day, but looking back, it was a pretty good buy. But I was even having a conversation with my brother this morning about start selling some more of the 26 crops just to keep feeding the bull. we can go up. But these markets are definitely watching what's going on the world stage right now and keep that moving.
You mentioned that we don't have a crystal ball, but what is your thoughts on the corn acreage from the Department of Agriculture?
Oh, yeah. I don't even want to put a number. I mean, it's definitely going to be 90 some. Last year's projection I think was 95, and then they came out the end said it was 98 million. Um, is it that high? I don't know if it's that high, especially if this rain keeps it happening. It's gonna pull down a little bit. Now, how much does it pull down? I don't know, but I don't think it's all going to go in perfect conditions. And especially the further north you go, especially Minnesota, stuff like that. I was talking with one of our friends that it's finally getting warm. Well, it hasn't been that warm here in central Illinois. So you think it's got to pull down on that number. Does that mean it goes to beans? I don't know. But it's definitely going to start with a 9. But is that 91 million or is it 98? It's probably more than that. Rough guess 93, 94, maybe 95 million acres.
Huh.
Like a guessing game.
Absolutely, it's a guessing game.
Can you tell our audience about your job at the Illinois Soybean Association?
Absolutely. As some of you guys know, before this, I was the president of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association, and IFCA has been phenomenal to me over the years. But this opportunity came up, and I was looking for a new challenge. And as some of your audience listeners know, used to work on Capitol Hill, worked on ag issues, and I kind of just wanted to go back to my roots of lobbying and working on those issues. Again, I can't thank enough my previous boss, Gene Payne, for giving me that opportunity to work for IFCA and work there. But I'm going to go back to my roots and bring a different perspective to lawmakers because I actually raise soybeans. But I go back to my roots of doing day-to-day policy, getting into the nuts. It's been a great opportunity. John Lump, the CEO, and soybeans, but got a lot of expand biodiesel. But then we also got a lot of challenges ahead of us down to the states stuff. Just some of the legislation that's being talked about on wetlands, pesticide. Is there more regulations on pesticide? So there's definitely opportunities, but there's some stuff that we're going to have to truly fight back and explain our story. One of the things that of the blend or 20% or more biodiesel and diesel fuel that can exist biodiesel at holiday. So we're actually making diesel fuel cheaper here in Illinois. It's blended up to be 20, but it's trying to eliminate that sales tax credit. We're still going to keep going on that fight. We're going to see what happens with the budget, but I think we're in a good place, specifically after some of the conversations from legislators yesterday and pushing back on that proposal.
What is your favorite part of the Illinois Soybean Association in Bloomington?
Oh, a lot of things, but just working with farmers, trying to tell our own story. That's the biggest thing. I mean, I did that at IFC, but it was just kind of a little different tweak on the ag industry. But this is what I do also. I'm representing the people that that I am because things we do on the farm. A lot of legislators don't do conservation tillage, or we do more tillage, or why do we spray this? Um, just spraying, and I can say, here's what I do on my operation. Not saying it's perfect. Every farm's different. I got one farm that we farm from the farthest west side to the furthest east, and we farm that two different ways. Not 1 acre is the same, but explaining to legislators and people that are at some of these agencies why we do it. And the last thing I always tell to a legislator, to a regulatory body agency person is, if you want to come to our operation, you want to come to my farm, I have an open door. Because I think if we're afraid to show what we're doing at the farm, people aren't going to explain it. So that is what I always leave everybody is, if you've got more questions, and there's no dumb questions, come out to our operation. I'll show you why we do some of the things that we do. And they get a better understanding. And we've had a lot of legislators that have taken me up, and we had the agency people take me up. Just come ride in the tractor, come ride in the semi, to deliver grain. So I got a true passion for two things. One is agriculture, and one is policy. And I get to merge those two passions together at this job.
People in Congress who came from the cities like in Chicago and the urban areas.
Well, there's all over where those legislators come from. But I'll tell you, I always thought, or most people think, oh, we have, the biggest conversation of trying to figure that out from like inner city members. To be honest with you, sometimes we have the most connection with the inner city member as urban, because sometimes there's food deserts. They're closer to their food, or they have some of the same issues as a rural community on healthcare or schooling and stuff like that. It seems like more lately, and that can all change, but it seems like we're having the biggest education gap with some of our suburban members rather than the inner city members, just with some of those plights. So again, it can be Republican or Democrats down there, but those are just, we got to educate those people at the end of the day. But again, it's all about trust, showing that you're willing to show them what you're doing, and let them ask questions at the end of the day.
Could you tell our audience about the update on the Farm Bill in the House on Thursday morning? Could we do our happy dance yet?
We're not across the finish line yet. We're just one step closer. So the Farm Bill, the skinny Farm Bill, or Farm Bill 2.0, did get passed out of the House, 224 to 220 on Thursday. It now moves to the Senate. The Senate is talking about the last week of May, first week of June, maybe doing a markup in the committee. Senator Bozeman has kind of threw that out there. I do think there's going to be some non-starters in the Senate with the House version, but there's some stuff they want to add and there's some stuff they want to take out. So we'll see what that looks like. We'll have a better idea from there, but we're one step along the way. As I've told everyone, is we got to keep this moving. This ain't the final farm bill. There's some stuff that was out of the G.T. Thompson's marked committee bill that didn't make it on the floor that we were kind of disappointed. But we are supportive of the farm bill. But again, we just know that this is one of many steps to get this through. A lot of this, if you know anything about farm bills, the Senate takes their version, the House takes their version, and then merges it together in a conference committee. I think that's where when we get those two versions, if we get to that with the Senate, that's where the real sausage will be made at the end of the day and what the compromise will be. But I do want to tell people a lot of the crop insurance, a lot of the food stamps, a lot of the commodity title were done in the big beautiful bill, or what you would call the big beautiful bill from President Trump they signed. So this is a lot of the other stuff, but this deals a lot more with ag research, some pesticide stuff. They did have a thing in there about Prop 12 about crate sizes for animals, especially on the hog industry. So there's some good things, but it's not your typical farm bill, what you've usually seen in the past. So we'll keep on working it. We're gonna, as soon as we hear when the Senate is gonna move, we're gonna go out there and fight for Illinois soybeans, and those growers. So we're gonna see what happens. But there's still a long way to go to get farm bill, but we're one step closer to it.
What is your thoughts with pesticides and the farm bill?
There was a provision that was in the Ag Committee's version that they took the floor, and then there was an amendment to strike that, talking about lawsuits with pesticides, who can sue, is it up to the US EPA label, what does that look like? If you talk to some Democrats, that was a poison pill that they just could not swallow. I think the Senate is going to look at it. Is it in their bill? Did they get something done? I don't know. I think the pesticide industry, is really looking hard in the mirror right now what that next step is, because I think that will take votes off a floor vote if that is in there. And do they pare that down? I think that is being talked about as we speak with the Senate Ag Committee chairman and minority spokesman of what that looks like on pesticides. So I think we're going to see that come out here in the next probably week, 10 days, and have a better read on what that looks like from there. But right now, again, the industry is looking themselves in the mirror of, can we push this, or what is a pared down version of that amendment look like in the Senate?
Finally, AJ, how can you tell our farmers about these issues? They feel uncertainty with China trading fossil inputs, inflation. What is your recommendation for it?
Again, I think most guys got it bought on the phosphate level, but it's just going to take a wait and see attitude. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think some of these markets are going to have to reset to go from there. One of the biggest things, we got to get the Strait open of a moose at the end of the day. If that doesn't happen, then this prices are not going to trickle down just because of the transportation costs on stuff. So we'll keep working that. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that the imports coming in. Is there any duties on that? But right now, it's a lot about transportation costs at the end of the day on the fertilizer needs.
Thanks, AJ. Good luck with everything at the Illinois Soybean Association.
Anytime, Caesar. You have a great day, and I hope your listening audience has a Safe rest of the spring.
This is Kevin Johnson from Illinois Soybean Association on back roads of Illinois.
Thank you so much, Caesar.